So, one decade is behind us. There were so many lovely names. I'm sorry because there is no more space for guys on this list. There were so many amazing guys, so many wonderful guys and ladies. It's kinda very harsh to come up with this list and to choose the best names because I'd put 50 fighters. I love them so much, and when you mix up emotions and so on, it's kind of harsh. But unfortunately, I was thinking that there is no place for Max Holloway, Tony Ferguson, A. Diaz, Eddie Alvarez, Bisping, Cerrone, Edgar, Dos Anjos, Miocic, Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos. Also, I didn't find a place in the top 10. Israel Adesanya, he exploded in the last year. Janja Jędrzejczyk, well, maybe for her, she was up. Robbie Lawler, Douglas Lima, Aung San, Kyoji Horiguchi, Patricio Pitbull Fryer, Michael Chandler was good, Mamed Khalidov was good. There were so many wonderful guys, wonderful names. But looking to the records from 2010 to 2019, I was kinda thinking of these achievements. Now let's see who I picked. Chris Cyborg had the score of 13-1, won a contest, and this was an incredible decade until she parted ways with UFC. She won UFC featherweight title, Strikeforce featherweight title, and Invicta FC featherweight title. The scariest female fighter for almost a decade, and she was blasted by Amanda Nunes after only 51 seconds. She dropped kinda in my eyes after that, but she is still strong. She will square off against Julia Budd in the new decade for Bellator belt, and when I have to choose the best knockout, it's definitely the one against Leslie Smith, you know, the girl whose cauliflower ear exploded. Jose Aldo. I mean, he wasn't the guy at his prime at the end of the decade, but during the first half he was just a scary dude. Kicking off with WC featherweight title twice, first ever UFC featherweight champion who defended the belt 7 times. I mean, you just remember some of his epic battles, crazy victories over Chad Mendes. Alright, Conor McGregor dethroned him, but Aldo was very, very dominant. He headlined the first WEC event. I think he fought against Uriah Faber and won it. So Aldo, he just low kicked Uriah. He just low kicked many guys. He had great takedown defense. Now going further, advancing to Amanda Nunes. She was incredible, but won UFC bantamweight, featherweight titles. But she exploded in the second part of the decade. First woman champ, 12-2 in the octagon overall. Couple losses earlier in the decade were maybe the reason I was thinking about putting her lower. But she was incredibly dominant. I mean, she exploded literally since that win over Ronda Rousey at UFC 207. I mean, defeating Miesha Tate via submission was not an easy task at all at UFC 200 because Miesha, I think she comes from a submission wrestling or wrestling background, and this was a hard task. But after annihilating Chris Cyborg, I really decided to put her very high. George St. Pierre. Unfortunately, George's decade was the last decade. In this decade, George was good, but he didn't fight that much. Maybe he won 7 fights in a row. One of few fighters that won 2 belts, defending UFC welterweight titles so many times. Then bashing Michael Bisping at UFC 217. He became the UFC middleweight champion. I think in this decade he defended the welterweight, is it 6 or 7 times? I'm not sure, I think 6. He didn't fight more frequently, retired twice or else. I mean, Alright, but the reason why I didn't put him in second or third place, you remember that his fight, UFC 167 against Johnny Hendricks. You all remember that it was a very controversial. I honestly thought Hendricks won that battle, and that's the reason why I lowered him on the list. Demetrius Johnson. Well, while many believes Demetrius deserves the top spot on the list, he was a dominant champion. I mean, from 2012 to 2018, UFC's first ever flyweight champion, defending it 11 times, but he was not a trash talking guy. And that's the reason why Dana White parted ways with him. He wasn't attracting many crowd, but he wasn't a bad fighter. He was an amazing fighter, even won one flyweight Grand Prix. I mean, his top performances. Do you just remember his two victories over amazing Joseph Benavidez, Ray Borg submission, Henry Cejudo KO? I mean, unfortunately, Dana White was not fair towards him, but Dana wants money, and that's the reason why such guys couldn't be ranked high on this list. Khabib Nurmagomedov, 21-0, man, it was a superb decade for the undefeated Dagestani, who was wrecking everybody in his way. He brought a lot of money to the UFC, missing 2 years due to injuries. I think 2014 to 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, dominant in the octagon, 12-0 record, but his fights against Conor McGregor brought so much money, and his dominant wins. He also carried the torch from Fedor, became a huge Russian emperor in the MMA. Daniel Cormier, well, his rivalry and beef with Jon Jones, 21-2 1-0 contest. One of the best fighters due to heavyweight and light heavyweight belt. Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix champ. No contest to Jon Jones. Well, he could be at the very top of the list, but it just didn't happen that way. I mean, KO against Stipe Miocic, that right clinch knockout, bashing Josh Barnett in Strikeforce for that Grand Prix. He had some really good results. He defeated Volkan Ozdemir. I think he had many other notable wins. Yeah, but the one over Volkan Ozdemir was amazing. Also, victory over Derrick Lewis, man. Submission to Anthony Johnson at light heavyweight. Man, it was awesome. Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was the most influential woman ever, despite her score of 12-2. And Ronda, at the end of career, she was battered by Holly and Amanda, but there was no such thing as women's MMA before Rowdy appeared. She was the first bantamweight champion, the Strikeforce women's bantamweight champ, defending the title 7 times, and the girl was a real armbar submission expert, defeating Miesha Tate 2 times. Her KO against Beth Correa was kinda surprising. Also, I think she has one of the fastest submissions ever in the world of female MMA. Kat Zingano was tapped out, I think, in 14 seconds. I'm not sure, trying to remember, but I think it was in 14 seconds at UFC 184, yeah. I think it was 14 or 15 seconds. I don't know if there was a faster submission. And then she transitioned to WWE. Her influence was amazing, and that's kinda, a thing you can't forget. Jon Jones, 16-0 1-0 contest. Many believe Jon Jones should be on the top of this list, but yeah, I mean, he was winning everybody, dominating during the decade, the greatest MMA fighter. He hasn't lost since 2011, defended the title 10 times. He was tried due to his confrontations with the law and PEDs, but he was unstoppable for the most part, deserves to be on the top of the list via top performances against Mauricio Shogun Rua, Daniel Cormier KO. Alright, he was used, but Alexander Gustafsson UFC 165 was probably one of the most entertaining battles he has ever taken part into. Many regard it was the best fight of the decade, but I was kind of disappointed at the end because I think Thiago Marreta Santos defeated him, and that's why I don't believe he should go in the first place. He wasn't dominant against Marreta. Conor McGregor. Like Kendall said, one of my greatest fans. Yeah, it was the era of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor rise and fall. I think such thing will never ever happen in the world of UFC. He wasn't the most important fighter, but his amazing trash talking ability skyrocketed him so high when the UFC was going through a transition with past stars like Chuck Liddell and Brock Lesnar. Retiring McGregor, he kinda entered the octagon and became a living legend. I mean, I'm not a fan of his, but UFC lightweight and featherweight champion, champ. He became the first UFC fighter to hold two belts at the same time. 13-second KO win against Jose Aldo when his build up for that fight was just amazing. He was thrashing everybody even in the home country of Brazil. He was able to, in Aldo's home country of Brazil, he was able to maintain pressure, control the whole situation, and so on. Mauled Eddie Alvarez to UFC lightweight title at UFC 205, boxing match against Floyd Mayweather. He broke pay-per-view records. His bout against Khabib Nurmagomedov also broke so many pay-per-view records, and some of his issues outside the octagon definitely harmed him, but rise and downfall of Conor McGregor, that's something that will never ever happen in the world of UFC, and I'm sorry there is no space for more lovely UFC fighters and lovely MMA guys, but let's see what happens in the next decade. I hope you enjoy this one, and unfortunately I don't have Bellator 237 live, so we'll see in the next year what happens. I'm very close to signing a contract, so let's see.